I'm Anisa Okta Viana. I'm from Cooperative Economic Education IUP 2020. In here, I would like to share to you about economic crisis that occurs in Sri Lanka. Okay, everyone, let's do here and give your best attention. Sri Lanka is a nation in the south of India. The country became independent after being colonized by the British in 1948. The population is 22 million. 99% consists of three ethnic groups, namely Sinhals, Tamils, and Muslims. Amid the threat of a world recession, the impact of the world economy caused by the COVID-19 pandemic and the war between Ukraine and Russia that affected the economic crisis in a country. Sri Lanka is experiencing the worst economic crisis in history that has caused the country to go bankrupt. The economic crisis in Sri Lanka is currently of concern to the world. Even in the last news, the president of Sri Lanka actually fled to the Maldives in the midst of his country's downturn. One of the causes of the crisis was the abundant foreign debt that Sri Lanka could not afford to pay. One of the causes of crisis in Sri Lanka has a lot of infrastructure projects and so on, but most of its debt. However, according to Unair economic, McWell explained, the economic crisis in Sri Lanka was caused by a combination of several factors, namely economic, political, and social. In 2005, Sri Lanka was already experiencing a deficit that grew year by year. The economic growth aspect of Sri Lanka from 2005 to 2021 experienced 6 times the negative economic growth. Sri Lanka is also undergoing a transformation in an economy where industrial manufacturing is declining. Nearly 10% of Sri Lanka's economy depend on receiving money from abroad or receiving from aspect of percent of Sri Lanka's economy depend on receiving money from abroad or receiving from aspect of tourism services. Tourism important economic growth of the country due to the pandemic and security after the terror attacks of 2019. The fall of Sri Lanka currency by up to 80% made import expensive and further hunted down already out of control inflation. According to official data, the price of staple food has risen by 57%. Sri Lanka's bankruptcy left the country with almost no money at all to adopt fuel, milk, gas for cooking, and paper toilets. The Sri Lanka's government owes $51 billion in debt and cannot repay the loan on its card credit, let alone reaches the amount of money borrowed. Sri Lanka's inflation is close to 40% and food prices rose nearly 60% last May. Sri Lanka Finance Ministry said the country had only $25 billion in usable foreign exchange reserves. This makes the country have no ability to pay for import, let alone pay billions for debts. The value of the Sri Lanka rupee weakened to 360 rupees for American dollars. This makes the cost of importing more expensive. Sri Lanka has suspended the payment of $7 billion worth of foreign credit due to this year from $25 billion to be repaid by 2026. Political corruption is also one of the problems that only occur in a country that squanders its wealth but only complicates any finance for Sri Lanka. In addition, there is also scarcity of some goods in Sri Lanka. All of these factors come together, creating a pretty big problem. What can use as a lesson from the cause of the economic crisis in Sri Lanka is about the country's dependence on import and goods from abroad. According to the lecturer at the Faculty Economic and Business UNAIR, Sri Lanka itself is very independent on other countries like fertilizer, other important inputs, and in April 2021, Rajapaksa abruptly banned the import of chemical fertilizer. The push of organic farming shocked the farmers and destroyed the rice crop, which became a crop in Sri Lanka. The prices of necessities began to soar. In order to save reserves, the import of the other goods and that are considered luxury goods is also prohibited. The debt-laden Islamic nation's economy has been in fine as it runs out of money to pay for food and fuel. A shortage of cash to pay for important of such necessities and failure to repay previous debt led Sri Lanka to seek help from its neighbor India and China and from the IMF is International Monetary Fund. Russia's war in Ukraine since February 2022 has pushed food and fuel prices even higher. Sri Lanka skipped meals due to the food shortage and have to queue for hours while trying to buy fuel that makes it untenable. This is harsh reality for a country whose big commerce is growing fast with a growing and comfortable middle class. Until the worsening of the crisis, weak commerce and President Gotabaya Rajapaksa agreed to direct protesters amid pressures from those who stormed the two residences and burned one from their residence. And the impact of this situation, the economic crisis led to destruction and on the street inflation soared amid scarcity of food, medicine, and fuel supplies. There were rotating power outage and ordinary citizens took to the street in enjoying. Most of them blamed the Rajapaksa family and government for this situation. Sri Lanka, which has a population of 2 million people, has experienced months of power outage, recording inflation, shortage of food, fuel, and medicine. Since the end of the year, the country has run out of foreign exchange to finance even the most important import. For some of the areas in Sri Lanka didn't expand investment in public transport appropriately. Meanwhile, the increasingly affluent population countries to complain about indiscipline of bus and rickshaw drivers. There is a view that in this perceived towards the ordinary people of the political elite and the rich people that has made this national loss. Based on data from Sri Lanka's Statistics Department released on Thursday, Sri Lanka's GDP growth in the second quarter of 2022 was recorded at negative 8.4%. The correction was the worst in the last 7 decades. Previously, Sri Lanka was declared bankrupt. This is due to the economic mismanagement during the pandemic. The people have to bear a heavy burden even just to get food, fuel, and medicine. Last April, Sri Lanka defaulted on its $51 billion foreign debt and open bailout talk with the International Monetary Fund or IMF. This also then makes food inflation in the country high. In trade economy data, food inflation in the country reached 90.9% in July 2022. In order to resolve this crisis, the IMF has so far been helped to contribute $2.9 billion. However, some requirements must be met. One of them restructuring debt with private bondholders and bilateral creditors before getting development. Meanwhile, in addition to the economic impact, the crisis condition has caused high social turmoil in society. The morning media reported a number of women were forced to switch professions to become sex workers with the aim of obtaining food and medicine for their family. The country's number of sex workers has also reportedly increased. Based on data from the local sex worker advocacy group Stand Up Movement Lanka, the number of women who become prostitutes during the crisis jumped by about 30%. Most of them come from the textile industry because many overseas orders disappearing, reaching 10% until 20%. These women are desperate to support their children. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you for your best attention. See you and thank you.